tremendous progress on these two fronts, but there's a scope to do a lot more. And we foresee new opportunities emerging in these two critical areas in the coming years. The topic of our next panel discussion is transformation in healthcare and education and emerging opportunities. Now, to probe further on the subject, I'm going to start by inviting our first panelist. And the first one to come up is Mr. Nasser Batha on stage, the co-founder and chief executive officer of Starcare Hospital Group, consolidates the company's business expanding operations on a large scale in the Sultanate of Oman. He has 2 decades of proven excellence in handling a variety of challenging roles across the globe in executive management, driving business expansion. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Nasser Batha to the stage. Our next panelist is Mr. Trevor Fernandez, Assistant General Manager of Bahwan Healthcare. He's a veteran in the pharmacy business and the healthcare business, and he has spent over 25 years in the sector. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Trevor Fernandez to the stage. Our next panelist is Dr. Manuela I'm going to get the name wrong. I'm sorry, Dr. Gutebrelet. I'm not very good at the name. So she's been in the PR manager for the German University of Technology in Oman since its establishment in 2007. She's also a tourism geographer and independent researcher. She has also worked as a freelance journalist for Agence France Presse and the Deutsche Welle TV, apart from many other media houses. She's been living in Oman since 2004 and has been closely associated with Oman's educational sector. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Manuela on stage. And to moderate the panel, we have another rising star from Al-Izz Islamic Bank, Mohammed Al-Bahrani. He's the Senior Manager of Investment Banking at Al-Izz Islamic Bank. He was involved in the landmark government of Oman's debut international $2 billion sukuk issuance and a strategic deal in the higher education sector with Oman Education Services, which is UTEC. He's currently working on several strategic deals for the bank in the education, healthcare, fisheries, real estate, and hospitality sector. Please help me in welcoming Mohammed Bahrani.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all for staying this late. I know it's tiring after a long day. This panel will be different from other panels. So we will be talking about healthcare and then education. So the first half, we're going to split it to healthcare, Mr. Nasser and Trevor. And after that, we'll go to Dr. Manuela about education. Now, we're not going to talk about supply chain per se. In healthcare, we will be more focusing on private sector participation and opportunities for SMEs. And in the education sector, we'll be talking about enabling the human nature. As earlier been said by panelists, there's no technology without people, and empowering people. So we'll be looking at how to provide that platform for the people going forward. Now, without further ado, we're going to start with healthcare. Now, me personally, for the last 10, or even not 10, 5 years, noticed there's been a huge growth in private sector hospitals. And Starcare has been one of the leading players in this. What is the key driver of this growth? Mr. Nasser?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me here. Yes, we've been here for about 9 years. I think next year we will probably, 21 probably, we will close 10 years. When we came here first in the beginning, early days, see the government healthcare system is so good in this country that there was no need for private sector to develop as such. But as we came in, there were some other players, and we saw there were still opportunities to probably grow in that sector. Primarily, our growth has come from focusing on quality. So we were one of the hospitals who got the first JCI accreditation within the first year. We focused on that, so we built the hospital to suit the JCI needs. Secondly, it was our doctors. I think doctors are very important in the healthcare business because end of the day, it's like the chef in the restaurant. You know, if you have the right doctor, then people trust them, and the trust is very important to create, and that makes it easy for people to come back to your hospitals. Service is also equally important because when people come to us, it's for cure, obviously, but cure isn't just about the physical illness, it's also the mental peacefulness and the happiness you need to get through the environment and the experience they go. So I think these are the 3 main things we focused on. Location has been good to us, so we were the first ones in that part of the world, so that helped us too.
Okay, thank you very much. And as you mentioned, having the right doctor is important, and having even the right medicine is important. Now, pharmacies has well seen the same growth around the nation. how did you, from your experience, Ms. Trevor, in Bahwan Pharmacy, see the dynamic changing? How did you tackle?
Well, Your Excellencies, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, in fact, it's a long story. I'd go back almost 3 decades since I've been here. When I came into Oman, there was nobody manufacturing pharmaceuticals, no pharmaceutical factory. And that was the first tick that I put in my notebook, is we must have a pharmaceutical factory here in Oman. The next is we need to have the products. And therefore, registration was important. And what is registration, basically? Having the products registered means the stability, the temperature requirements, and so on. And then finally, the territory. Oman is 310,000 square kilometers, which is the second largest country after Saudi Arabia. Thanks to the vision and direction of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos bin Said, roads were built all over Oman into the nitty-gritties and interiors of the place. And therefore, we come to the next thing, is supply chain. When we say supply chain, who, for what? Supply chain is meant for the customer. Customer should be satisfied. Right from the start to the finish. The customer wants something, you give it to him, he's satisfied, he smiles, your job is done. But if he's unhappy, something more needs to be done to keep him satisfied. So there must be a customer focus, there must be a customer satisfaction, and there must be continuous improvement. Even now, we are improving. Then what next? We import products from around the world. We receive them at the airports. They need clearance. Again, to the supply chain. We were lucky. After a few years, the customs duty of 5% was removed. Ministry of Health was very cooperative, and they worked along with us to take off all the obstacles. So the products come into our warehouse, part of supply chain. We need good warehouses, and ministry ensured that with good inspections, and they guided us, so our supply chain was intact. In fact, in the pharmaceutical sector, we deal with a very delicate aspect of the supply chain, maintaining the temperature control products. We also deal with products that should be between 2 to 8 degrees. So now, when it comes into our warehouse, then out to the customers. Who are our customers? Hospitals. That time there were no hospitals. Initially, 80% of supplies went to the government, 20% to the private market. Today, things are changing. And we are gearing up to meet that demand. Now it's almost 50-50. 50% to the government, 50% to the private market. Then, reaching the interior parts of Oman is very important. So we set about training the people, training the drivers, training our supply people who went with the vans. And to keep the customer happy is not easy. If a supplier goes and just throws the box at the customer, he's upset. So we had follow-up of our medical reps who went around the country to ensure customer satisfaction. And with that, you see the chain was complete. So supply chain is not only just putting it into a box and giving it to the customer. No, the customer must be happy. And I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we have come a long way. And today, we have got also the National Pharmaceutical Industries, which was started by the Bhavan Group. And we have a share even till this day. The first pharmaceutical factory that was started in Oman in 2001. Initially, we faced a lot of resistance. But later on, the supply of these products went all over Oman. And today, I'm happy to inform you that the supply of these products goes all over the GCC and to several other countries. So that's how we are trying to ensure the supply chain perfect. Then came vaccines. See, the steps slowly we are increasing and improving. Vaccines. Releasing vaccines from the airport is not easy. We have to release the vaccines within 6 hours of arrival to maintain the proper chain. We are dealing also not only with supply chain, but with cold chain. So the vaccines have to reach the ministry warehouse 6 hours after they land. Special preparations have to be made for that. They are received, Then again, the cold chain has to be maintained. They're checked for the temperature at the government warehouse, and then the long trek back to the ministry for vaccinations of the patients. So thereby, ladies and gentlemen, you see that we have completed the entire chain. And we have not finished there. We are still improving. Today, with the private market coming up, they say, now, we want the product now. And therefore, we are gearing up for that kind of a supply to be made. It will come. They say, tough times never last, tough people do. And I'm sure we will complete that quite soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's been very insightful. You've touched upon infrastructure, how it's important in some of the supply chain. Now, globally, there's been a change, and Mr. Rad also touched upon this, the coming up of e-commerce. Now, what's your opinion on this? Now, locally in Oman, over-the-counter drugs, because of regulation, you cannot trade within e-commerce. But going forward, what do you probably suggest as a regulation, or what's your thoughts on it overall?
See, selling pharmaceutical products and medicines by e-commerce may not be possible because it requires a prescription. It requires a counseling. The patient requires counseling on the treatment schedule and the dose he needs to take. So pharmaceutical products may not be possible. Also, temperature has to be maintained. Below 24 degrees for the normal products, and then 2 to 8 degrees for cold chain products. So that may not be possible for e-commerce. But there is a silver lining. For the OTC products, like maybe toiletries, cosmetics, a way could be found so that supplies could be done on that basis.
That's good to know. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Nasser, you have an extensive experience in not just healthcare, but also aviation, technology, and investment. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
Now, did these experiences help you in developing a business model for Starcare? And going forward, what is the emerging now business model? How is it changing in the market?
Thank you. I guess, you know, you learn in every industry. So I did move from various industries, and we consider hospitals probably a mixture of many industries. So there is service, there is manufacturing, there is logistics, and there is also technology. So technology is obviously growing big time in the healthcare business. The market is changing, so market is no more now specifically focusing on hospitals. First, everything was a general hospital. Now the focus is more on specialized hospitals. So centers, we will be opening next year, early next year, our mother and child hospital. That will be the first of its kind in Oman, where you specifically focus to a market segment. There are others working on other specialties like diabetes, cardiovascular issues. So you move away from a general health management to more specialized health management. There's also, talking about SMEs and things, a lot of people putting efforts in looking at home care. Home care is another area where we see developments happening. Long-term care, which has not come into Oman, but it's there in the other GCC. I think there are entrepreneurs looking at that because a lot of people, as they get old, they need long-term care, and they don't need to be in a hospital environment, but they need to be taken care of with adequate resources. Rehabilitation is another area where there are developments happening. So the models are obviously evolving, and it's influenced by technology and the demand in the marketplace. So yeah, there are changes, but and to answer your other question, how it's helping me in Starcare, obviously we are looking at various, I think we are the first hospital to be licensed for home care. We tested that with our midwives for the mothers. It did not work too well because I think there are a lot of logistical issues we need to deal with, but we will come back with that probably next year, well thought in process, yeah.
Thank you very much. You touched upon home care and rehab. Now, there's a growing trend on smart healthcare. For example, when I go to a hospital, the first question they ask is, do you have a file with us? Did you open something with us? Did you come previously? Now, the idea of smart healthcare, in a nutshell, similar to current application as Talabat or Akid, to use an example, there's a single database where you have all your information on it. If you go to multiple different hospitals, probably then they'll have the doctor will have a track record on this. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think this When will this be implemented in Oman, and can it work?
Yeah. Earlier, the hospitals retained the files of patients, and you could only access it through going to the hospital or with the permission of the hospital. And I think we are all looking at opportunities to probably give access to patients over their files, which belong to them from anywhere they are, so they can, if they want to go to a second doctor, they don't have to go through the whole process again. They have access to all the data, and that can make it easy for them. Data is becoming so huge, so managing data and making sure the technology is in place to access that, that's very critical. There's a lot of technological developments happening in the healthcare industry. If you look at it from the artificial intelligence side with the cognitive technology, diagnostics are changing. The watches we wear today read a lot of our vital signs. How can we link those into the hospital and better manage a patient are areas we are looking at. We have just launched, for example, last 2 weeks back, a new product in our business called Saha Clinics. Saha Clinic is primarily a primary care center, which we want to take into out of city and more in rural areas where people can have access to good care. We're trying to keep the cost as low as possible for that. And for that, we're looking at technology to manage the vital signs so we can depend less on people, and machines can do a lot of vital sign checks before they can see the doctor, so the doctor can see more patients because doctors cost money. So we're trying to see how best we can manage it. Sure, there's a lot of developments, yes, and we're looking at them.
Thank you very much. This has been very insightful. Trevor, you touched upon earlier, like how much the market has grown. Initially, there was no pharmacies, no manufacturers, no nothing. Now, in the current environment, what opportunities do you see for local companies within the supply chain, as you mentioned earlier? How can they pitch in? What can they bring in to the company, to the market, to the economy?
In fact, something new that can be added to the supply chain would be agencies who take over the distribution of products from the companies, who have logistics supply vans, who can expedite the supplies on a contract basis. Very often we have a lack of good contractors who can help us deliver goods. As the business is growing, we find that problem coming up, and reliable suppliers. That's another one business that's open, in fact. Secondly is that we reach all parts of Oman. Oman, as I told you, 10,000 square kilometers, right up to Duqm and beyond, and Mirbat. In fact, I've been all over Oman, and you see the possibility of opening pharmacies, and so therefore reaching out to them with trained personnel. Today, I tell you, when you talk of supply chain, we even supply equipment and material for trauma. Believe it or not, we have recruited Omani ladies who are biomedical engineers, and they take the items and go to the market and supply it. They go to the hospitals and supply it. They go to the government hospitals and they are there. So that is the type of change that is coming in. So this is a market that is open now. We need help for logistics. We need help of people who will join us, quality people. And that is the change that will have to come.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Nasser, your input as well. What do you think about opportunities for SMEs within the healthcare as well?
See, SMEs will continue to grow and they will have opportunities. Sorry, excuse me. SMEs will continue to grow and they will have opportunities. If you look at Oman right now, we have roughly about 4.5 to 4.9 million people. Only 450,000 of that is insured. The rest is not insured. The government hospitals take a lot of burden on them to support people who are not insured. Mandatory insurance is coming in later this year, hopefully early next year, and that will change a lot. A lot more people will be insured. And when a lot more people are insured, the needs within the healthcare sector will increase. I'll give you a good example. Last week, so we're setting up this mother and child hospital. So we primarily focus on the medical needs of our customers. but there are things the mother and the child needs beyond just medical needs. So we were looking at wellnesses and what we can provide them. And we were astonished to see there was a group of Omani ladies, young entrepreneurs, who had set up a clinic which focuses on prenatal and postnatal care for the mothers. So we called them and they came in and we talked. And we're now looking at how we can collaborate with them so they can open something within the hospital for us and grow. So we will have to continue to encourage people who have the desire to grow. I mean, Mushraf was a good example, for example, what we saw earlier today. I mean, there are a lot of entrepreneurs and I think they will find the niches within our marketplace to grow. And I'm pretty sure that will continue to grow.
Thank you very much, Nasser and Trevor, for your insights. We end that for the healthcare section. If anybody has any questions regarding healthcare.
I'm not a doctor, I need to tell you that.
Okay, then we'll just continue to the education now section. Now, there were supposed to be more and more panelists for education, but Dr. Manuela is on her own, so I promised her we'll take it easy, as in a conversation between friends. Okay, now me personally, first I've been going down the expressway. When I first saw geotech, one of the first things that caught my mind, how state-of-the-art the building was. Then I went inside and saw how state-of-the-art the facilities were. Professors, the way they conduct their studies, their labs. Now, being pioneers, or one of the leading pioneers here in the country, what do you have in the future? What is the new courses you're trying to introduce to this market, to this changing market?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the kind invitation. I think I'm one of the, or the only female panelists throughout the day, so thank you very much for the invitation.
It's good to have.
I'm really very honored to speak about the university, the German University of Technology in Oman, that was established not a long time ago, in 2007. And in the beginning, yeah, we were in a beach campus, not far away from here. And so we moved from the beach campus to an airport campus just beside the airport. And constantly, the university has been growing from 60 students at the beginning in 2007 to now more than 2,000 students. And by the way, most of our students are girls as well. So we try to empower girls and to meet...
You have lots of fans.
Yeah, as well. I mean, to meet as well the demand in the job market. I think a sustainable society needs women participation as well. So our programs have started with bachelor programs. We started urban planning, architectural design in the beginning, and computer science, applied geosciences, and sustainable tourism. These were the 4 programs we started in 2007. Then we introduced as well, a few years later, we introduced engineering programs in process engineering, environmental engineering, and mechanical engineering. And now we have as well logistics and international business and service management. So, and by the way, as well, the logistics programs is one of the strongest programs now with many students. And we recently introduced as well master programs in different fields, in architecture, in engineering, and MBA as well, in cooperation with the university in Austria, and in computer science, in cooperation with our partner university in Germany and a university in Belgium.
I understand that more than actually providing education, you actually also provide something you called life counsel support or concept.
Well, not really.
If you can remind me what is
I mean, yeah, we have introduced a special course called life skill courses for all the students, and in addition, we have as well creative design for all students, regardless. I mean, if they study computer science or architecture or engineering, they have to do creative design, just to improve creativity. to help students to think out of the box and to solve problems in a creative way. And we have life skill courses, which are similarly where usually now we go out with the students and they're taught in a block course, and we teach them to work in groups, team building, leadership skills, and just to be outside as well, be outside the classroom. And in addition, we are also always trying to connect with the industry. I mean, all students have to conduct internships throughout their study programs. And we have close cooperation with our German partner university and other universities, mainly in Germany. And we conduct excursions to different universities in Germany. Or even recently, our logistics students went to Germany to do a tour around and visited different companies like DHL, for example, in Germany. So we always try to connect the practice and the theory in the classroom. I think it's too boring just to study in the classroom. I mean, you need to get out and face the reality as well.
No, that's very interesting. I agree with that. And I understand that other than actually just providing education and for the students, you actually go out to the community as well. You start even before university, you go to high schools, international schools, try to increase awareness. Can you elaborate on that as well?
Yes, we have been trying to connect with the community, well, through the media, the traditional media, but as well through social media, creating awareness about what we are doing at the university, about different topics. And as well, we go to the schools. Well, I personally, I have been going to international schools like the Indian school here, or various Indian schools, or other international schools, or French school. And we create awareness about our programs. I mean, I realize that many school students don't really know what does it mean to study urban planning or logistics. Many school students need more information and need to be informed in depth about their study programs in advance.
One of the things I really liked about geotech, I'm not trying to be biased, my brother was in geotech, so one of his projects actually was doing robotics. He was mechanical engineering, so I was really interested in that. I saw how practical the university was. Other things, what I've seen from the newspaper, that you were encouraging students in going into competition, like for the Eco House,
Yes.
and they have the Shell Eco Marathon. Is this something that you do hand in hand with the private sector? How do you develop these kind of programs or interactions?
Well, usually, yes, through our professors. They encourage the students to participate in different competitions here in the region, but as well internationally. So our students even participated in Google competitions and in the US or regionally. Even one of our graduates is representing Google now. What did your brother study? Computer
Mechanical
science?
engineering.
Okay, mechanical engineering. So in engineering, we have the Shell Eco Marathon. Our students, a group of students, are creating every year an eco-friendly car. And this year they participated in, I think it was in Singapore, and along with SQU. And I think already participating in a competition is great for the students, and to be part of a larger team, and to meet other students, and to be abroad as well.
I think that's very good. That's very important for vocational and practical training, actually, for people, especially going into industries and supply chain and everything. That was very insightful. Thank you very much, Dr. Manuela.
By the way, and
Yes.
I just want to add something. For example, for the Shell Eco Marathon, we're always looking as well for support from the industry. And if you think this is a good idea to support, we are welcome, or we would be happy to be in contact with you. As well for other competitions, industry, excursions, or internships. We are always looking for industry partners for the university.
I can see Asiad nodding his head. I think you got somebody right now. No, thank you very much. That was the last question for our education. Anybody has any questions for our panelists? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was there
Sorry?
a question?
Sorry, there's
There
a
was-
question. There's a question in the back.
Thank you. Is this on? Yeah, thank you. Nick Hubbard from Muscat University. One of the themes of the day, in fact, in every single session, education has been mentioned, which is quite interesting that the final session, the final speaker is in the education field, but it actually underpins everything that we do. If we relate it to logistics and supply chain, we know that globally there is a mismatch of demand and supply in terms of logistics and supply chain managers. I'm sure the industrialists here have struggled over the years to find appropriate people, both from within Oman and also from outside Oman, to come and work within their organizations. So it's very interesting that GU Tech and the other colleges and universities in Oman have developed logistics and supply chain management undergraduate degree programs, and at Muscat University we're offering master's programs, part-time basis for those in work. But what is actually going to happen in a couple of years' time is that you will have several hundred graduates coming out of these undergraduate programs, more undergraduate graduates than there is in the whole of the United Kingdom coming out of logistics programs. My question to the industrialists and perhaps people on the panel, and particularly the previous panel, is, are these jobs going to be available at the right level? I have spoken with a company just this week. They pay graduate trainees 5 riyals a day, and that's it, which is not achievable for anybody to live off if they're having to sustain themselves. So I suppose the question is, the education is very important, the human capital at all levels, whether it be school, training, post-school training, higher education, postgraduate, very, very important. But we do have to address this issue that the market is soon going to be swamped in Oman with these very, very well-qualified, fantastic graduates who are looking for good jobs. And I would like to hope that those jobs will become available within logistics and supply chain. Thank you.
Any of you want to answer that question, or should I direct that? I think since it's based on the logistics, Sanjeev, how about you give an answer to that question? Can we get a mic for Sanjeev, please?
I think there is no easy way to answer this, but the point of capability building is that you have more reliance on in-house capability than on outside resources. And of course, there is always the gap between having the expat population fill in. Now, the whole idea of bringing the capability in-house and having our education institutes provide world-class graduates is not only for Oman's sustenance, but it's also in order to bring Oman as the center of excellence for logistics activities and for logistics capabilities within the region. So what I would definitely want to emphasize is that we were not trying to shy away from the job creation part of it. The job creation is definitely going to be there. We see the sector growing very, very strongly. There is a healthy growth being registered in the sector. But at the same time, we are trying to match the existing skills with what our expectations are, right? So while you try to bring world-class organizations and global leaders like DHL, Aramex, and DB Schenkers into Oman, they will be trying to bring their global standards into the country. So we have to definitely up our side of the educational portfolio to make sure that we have graduates who are at par with their expectations. And by all means, while those opportunities are not only for say services within Oman, we're looking at internships being provided by most organizations. In my previous role within DHL, we had interns taken from various educational institutes in Oman, and they were sent for 2-year internship programs across the world. So they would actually spend 6 months in 4 different countries, understanding the international culture, understanding the best practices, and with that knowledge, then they come back to Oman, and then they try to incorporate themselves as the middle management leaders who will then take up proper positions of leadership. So we see that there is a growth path created. There is always the opportunity. And nevertheless, my final comment would obviously be that since we are so much on entrepreneurship, the focus is very, very strong. So we shouldn't always rely on jobs being there. It's about you creating the job not only for yourself, but also for others within the sector. And that is the classic case of how the SME development and the incubation programs in the country are now trying to focus on. So we're trying to create a new opportunity. You try to create a new blockchain company. You will not only employ yourself, you're going to be employing 10 more people. And with that, there is the growth of a new idea, a new area for the sector to service. Same goes for most of the other technology elements. The same goes for services in general as well. Where you consider last mile delivery organizations, you consider electronic brokerage, freight forwarding across the electronic channels. All kinds and measures of activities and services are now developing because of the digital economy. You are not really glued to saying, I need to have a desk and a piece of paper to do something. People have ideas which are translated automatically into electronic versions, and then you have a web portal which will provide a service. So I see there is a very strong expectation from the industry for jobs. And while those are being created organically, we definitely would like to encourage the entrepreneurial spirit within the student community as well, to see that they can come up with some really, really bright ideas. We want to see some unicorns in Oman as well, people who can then put Oman on the world map to say innovation happened here. This is where the company was born. So, in some form and shape, while we do take the ownership in some cases, of course, we would like to throw it back to the community as well, saying, how can you help us achieve this together? And that would be my question back to our friends from the academia.
All right. Thank you very much. Big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you very much. Can we just have a group picture of you guys, please? And a big round of applause to Mohammed Bahrani for handling that panel in a very excellent way. Now that brings us to the end of the first OER Supply Chain Conference presented by Al-Izz Islamic Bank. You guys have been a great audience, and we hope that you had a great day listening to all the experts that we had, and to the interesting discussions and the presentations that we had as well. I'm going to start by thanking our exhibition partners, Business Gateway International, Jaeger, Gulf Petrochemical Services and Trading, our media partners, Business Live, ME, Times of Oman, Al Shabiba, Anam Al Iqtisad wal A'mal, Oil and Gas Review and Dossier, plus our print partners, Al Anan Printing. Now today's event was managed by UMS Live, the specialist events and conference arm of United Media Services. And before we leave, on behalf of Al-Izz Islamic Bank, I would also like to give a huge, huge thank you to OER for partnering with us and helping us make this a success. And especially, I would like to call out, I don't think he's in the room right now, but Alpana is here or not, but they have an excellent person on board called Akshay Bhatnagar. There he is. He really deserves a big, big round of applause. And thank you all for being here. We're going to have a number of events coming up, series of events based on supply chain and other aspects, and we hope that we will have you guys present at those events as well. Thank you for being with us, and I hope you have a very wonderful evening.